We have Bitcoin pushing some pretty critical levels, but interesting things taking place in the market. I'll show you why. We're seeing some divergence between Bitcoin and some of the altcoins, which is pretty interesting given the state of the market. Bitcoin, of course, pushing down below $90,000, creating a lot of panic within the market. In today's video, I actually want to give you 3 things that you can do going forward from today, which will assist you to make it back, right? For anyone that is down, we always just have to assume that the market takes most of the money away from most of the people most of the time. Even if I, for example, were in a full-on cash position, that doesn't necessarily mean that you guys were. And therefore, I'm assuming there are some losses on the table. Actually, go and vote. I'd love to know your thoughts as always. I like to get an idea of where your guys' headspace is at, where you're at. So go and vote while you smash the like button over there. Which is most true to you in terms of the statement? Is this the last shakeout, the final shakeout before we get one more pump, which is going to take us to all-time highs? 35% of you have voted for that. Or is the 4-year cycle theory spot on and the top is actually in for the cycle because we met that time period, right? 1,070-ish days. That is the longest cycle that we had previously seen, which was back in 2017. Or do you believe the 4-year cycle is dead and we're going to trade more like the S&P 500? 12% of you have voted for that. And the other 30% are just simply tired, which I totally understand. I'm sure if you could select 2, you'd probably each choose one of the first 3, and all of you would select I'm tired, boss. So go and vote over there. Let me know. Let's see where the rest of your guys' headspace is at, and then we'll get straight into it. As I did mention to Whale Room yesterday, I currently only have 4 positions on the table. Majority cash position, and then I have a short trade on MicroStrategy, gold, and silver. So we'll have a look at some of those, and we'll have a look at the stock market as well, because that is going to dictate a lot of what happens within crypto. I believe we have some big earnings, huge earnings, NVIDIA earnings coming out. NVIDIA, in terms of weighting, holds one of the biggest weightings when it comes to the S&P 500 in terms of how much market cap it is. And therefore, if NVIDIA goes down, of course, that's going to bring the rest of the stock market down, and that's just going to exacerbate the drawdown that we've had over here. So let's get into it. Gold, silver, MicroStrategy, NVIDIA, the S&P 500. We need to look at all these things first before we can move into crypto, because it's absolutely critical to the space, right? So I'm viewing gold as a complacency bounce that came into play over here following a pretty parabolic blow off top. And that was the reason for the short trade. At this point in time, there should be almost no risk on the table. If you do wish to eliminate the risk, well, there it is. I've eliminated the risk, right? I'll go and do that on my brokerage account after the show. I've eliminated the risk, no chance of losing. We're absolutely in the money on this trade. Congratulations to all that got in on that trade. Silver, we're in the money on this trade. Risk eliminated, absolutely no chance of losing. So even though the markets are going down, we are still making money, which is absolutely amazing. We'll have a look as well at MicroStrategy, which is down 38% since entry. So some massive profits over there. All of this has been dropped in Whale Room. If you go through over here, you'll see some of my trades. So there's my gold trade, there's my silver trade, and then, of course, here is my MicroStrategy trade. So all of that playing out absolutely beautifully. Congratulations to those of you in Whale Room. If you want to join, remember, guys, it's Black Friday at the moment, and we are currently running a big special for that. So use the link in the description below if you would like to join. Let's get through the rest of the things. So I said we need to always look at the Magnificent 7, because the Magnificent 7, of course, affects what happens with the stock market, the actual S&P 500. And if the S&P 500 is going to pull back, you might see some of those cracks and signs early in some of the other Magnificent 7 stocks. So for now, you are starting to lose a pretty key level. Personally, if I were bullish on the stock market, I'd want to see it consolidate above this 6,800 mark. The yellow box over here needed to hold. You've now spent a lot of time coming down. So the stock market may actually be going in for a little bit of a deeper correction, which is therefore definitely going to affect crypto. So this is looking at the S&P 500. We had been long on this multiple times, throughout, and we were targeting the top side over here, but no risk on the table. Multiple TPs have been taken. The stock market ran from the lows to the highs, 44%, almost just shy of 44% without any meaningful pullbacks over there. We'll look at QQQ, also hanging below that key 50% level. The QQQ is the NASDAQ, and what we really want to see is that maintain above 613. So also starting to show a little bit of weakness over there. Dow Jones, same thing over here, starting to break below. And I can probably make this a little bit neater for you guys, but this is essentially your SR flip for the Dow Jones, right? So similar to the S&P 500, similar to NASDAQ, you really want to get back above this yellow box. Otherwise, there will be some underlying weakness. We also had full take profits occur on Apple exactly into the upper boundary of that parallel channel. So it would be expected that you may at least put in a little bit of a pullback over there. And then I've got, I guess, the really important one we have to look at because of its earnings that's going to be coming out is NVIDIA. Similar to the stock market, we long this many times throughout. We reached our full take profit and we even gave extra trade opportunities for those who were late. So I'm going to delete that one. Full TP was met. That was based off of the rectangle breakout. You can see over here our yellow line, rectangle breakout over there. Measured move has been met. I would remain patient. Theoretically, it's in an okay zone because this is your big SR flip. So if you look at the previous resistance, flipped into support, coming back into that support zone, this general area is vitally important that you see NVIDIA hold. If NVIDIA starts to close below that, that may be the hairline crack that will probably lead to a bad earnings and consequently prices will come down. Remember, when it comes to NVIDIA as well, is that even earnings that are not that bad will be interpreted as bad because NVIDIA has had the reputation of knocking the earnings completely out of the park, right? All expectations get completely surpassed. So for example, if you have a scale of like 1 to 100 and the earnings come out at, let's say, 25, but the expectation was that it's going to be 30, well, then, for example, if it doesn't hit the expectation of the rest of the market at 30, that could lead to a sell-off despite the earnings actually being on paper okay. So that's something to keep an eye on, right, for NVIDIA over there. It's also about the perception of the overall market. Let's go on to Tesla. Tesla did also pull back a little bit. We also had the long trade over there. Now, Tesla, you're going to want to see it reclaim back to this 420 region very soon. You have moving average support coming in the form of the 200-day moving average. So I guess that's relatively significant. We have Meta already losing significant levels, breaking below that 50% level. This one's been pretty weak and is showing a lot of weakness. It may come all the way back down to about 533. We have Google. Google looks okay, consolidating at the highs. Microsoft looks pretty overextended. I think this one needs to pull back a bit. Amazon filling the gap over there, also a bit sloppy. Probably leave that one alone. We'll look at the crypto stocks as well. Coinbase losing a very significant level. And in fact, this is now starting to have look like a complacency bounce, failing at that upper boundary of the parallel channel. So now what you'll be looking for in Coinbase is it needs to basically reclaim and get back above 300. I would give it the nice round number of 300. Any push up into 300 that acts as a rejection or resistance, it's probably going to come back down to about 220, which is going to be your bottom of that parallel channel. Potential support coming in over there. Circle is getting absolutely obliterated. Basically just price discovery towards the downside. So I'm in a side bet on that. I'm hoping to cash out at 25 for that side bet. We also saw Robinhood break structure and show some weakness, a little bit of also underlying cracks within the broader market, just suggesting that maybe the market is going to put in a bit of a pullback in the equities, which is going to affect crypto. So breaking that structure over there, a lot of work needs to be done over here. Theoretically, if you rallied aggressively today, you could maybe consider that a swing failure pattern, getting back above 120. Since yesterday, you wicked below and you closed nice and strong back to the top side over there. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, MicroStrategy, we're absolutely milking this for everything that it's worth over there. And all these trades, as mentioned, were dropped in Whale Room. You can see over here all the way from the 30th of October, a couple of Thursdays ago, a short trade on MicroStrategy over there. So now it's do or die. Here it is. Bitcoin has come to our area of interest, right? And I want to be pretty clear about that. It's just an area of interest. An area of interest just means potential zone where price could bounce, coming into the low boundary of this parallel channel that has been held since the beginning of the bull run. or actually the bull run started over here. So when things started to get more aggressive, that has been since October 2023. The problem is the more touch points you have at a given level, the higher the probability is that it's going to break through. So we started it over here. The inception was, let's grab that over there, touch point 1, touch point 2. Let's give it benefit of the doubt, say that was touch point 3, and now we're coming in for the 4th time. So this could elicit a little bit of a bounce, but now you need to be incredibly cautious. Even if you do get that bounce, it just drastically increases the chances that this area around $100,000, which you can see is where those prior tops were, prior support, is now going to act as resistance over there, and then that rejection will probably break that down, and then you're going to probably come into the 200-week moving average for Bitcoin. I'm not on the weekly chart over here, but keep that as an eye out for a longer term target, right? That's going to take a few months to get there. So we'll review things on the lower time frames in a moment. I want to be clear. The most important thing when it comes to the charts is going to be the trend, and the trend is very aggressively towards the downside, despite the fact that you have some confluence in the form of potential support over here. But if you look at that with your moving averages, they're separating. When the moving averages gain separation, that's usually where your trending moves begin, right? So the separation between the yellow and the green and the purple. The yellow is a short term, green is a medium term, and the purple is a high time frame moving average. And when they postured like this in the form of short below medium below high time frame, and they begin to angle towards the downside, you're at the start of a trend, which therefore increases drastically that is a major top. But there is still a bounce zone potential, and I want to show you in today's video exactly why when we get to the daily chart, and how you can use a low time frame trigger plan. Now that may only come tomorrow, and I'll show you why as well. That may only come tomorrow, so keep an eye out on that. We have hit our targets. Remember, for the longest period of time, we had this as target 1, we had this as target 2, and now we've come into that area. But how much momentum do bulls have? Well, we can see the momentum based on the separation of those moving averages, and we can also see based on the Bollinger Bandwidth percentile. Now, of course, the move is getting into its mature phase, but this can still extend a lot further. This can redline, which means you possibly you're 65% of the way through the potential move, which means that there's still some meat left on the bone in the form of the shorts taking control. Shorts are in control, don't mistake it. But usually when this reaches around about 80%, that's when I'll say that the majority of the damage is done. And if you were in a short trade off of the signal, which we did give as well in Whale Room, I'm not going to scroll back for the sake of saving time over here. But if you do go back around this date over here, which would have been around October, we looked at that expansion. It's taken place, right? The expansion has taken place. And when you get into that 80% region, you would expect that the selling should slow down. So a little bit more patience is definitely required, but do not mistaken that the bears are fully in control over here. And of course, they're going to be looking to defend these lows. You don't want to take out those lows. If you do, it just drastically increases the chances that the top is in, right? The top being in is not a black or white thing. It's a sliding scale of probabilities, and the probabilities just begin to increase more and more and more and more, right? Anyone who says that they know 100% what's going to happen in the market is not telling you the truth. Nobody knows. I know that you guys always think there's someone that knows, but there isn't. There isn't anyone that knows. It's all about weighing up the probabilities. That's what I do on the channel for you guys daily. And the probabilities, I would say, are now looking like 70% chance that the top is in. And that probability will increase more and more and more as this expands, as price comes down. And of course, once you take out those levels, you well and truly cooked. So let's get into the Whale Trade site. Remember, guys, there is a link in the description below. This is free for you to use. There's absolutely no charge. I built all these tools for you so that you can make your life easy. I actually built it for myself, I must be honest. But you guys get to be beneficiaries of it because I thought it would make my life easy when I do these YouTube videos. So the skew, that's one thing we're looking at. It did get quite aggressive yesterday, but it's back into more balanced territory, right? Negative 2.36% is like nothing. We look at big numbers being 6, 7, 8%, while price is coming into key supports with high liquidation levels, things like that. We haven't yet seen that. We have got the high liquidation levels. If we go over here, we saw once again 24-hour liquidations over $1 billion, majority coming from the long side. But liquidity is getting drained, absolutely drained over here from the market. The daily exchange volume is still really, really struggling. So this is still, just bouncing around here. You definitely don't want to see this start to take out that $30 billion mark, because then you're basically moving into new lows. So it's been a constant grind and struggle, and we haven't seen anything close to what we saw back in 2021. The most exciting period of the market was over here in 2024. So in order to get the, runs continuing, so any sort of pumps, if you want to see that continue, what you really need to see is this daily exchange volume continue to melt up. Now, we've spoken a lot about this. The ETF outflows, they do continue. There's a big misconception about the ETFs where everybody seems to think that BlackRock are buying Bitcoin for themselves. They're just storing it under their pillow in a hardware wallet, right? That's absolutely not the case. They are simply acting on a mass scale like an exchange. It's the same thing, right? It's their users that come and buy the Bitcoin, which means when the market starts to go down, it is their clients that decide to sell the Bitcoin. So therefore, do not mistake in the fact that you have, ETFs in the market, that the market can't go down. There will be some of the biggest sellers that come into the market, and we want to keep an eye on this, because when we get the biggest selling days, weeks, the same way that we get the biggest buying days or weeks, like this massive green bar over here, it tends to mark local tops or bottoms. So if you have a look over here, there it is, right? $126,000 is where Bitcoin went on the biggest ETF inflow day. So if we get a big outflow week or day, that could also coincide, with a potential bottom over there in the market. And then you can look at things like this, right? The skew, if that's met simultaneously with a massive skew over there, that's going to be a telltale sign. Also, for those of you on the site, remember, you can also see when we go live in Whale there is a full calendar over here. If you want to open that up, you guys can always go and look who is live for live trading and when they are live, right? And our traders are crushing it in there. 1,272% up. Really, really great traders in the group over there. So anything else? Let's quickly look at the flows, the money flows, what's happening over there in the market in terms of money flows. And the reason why is because we're seeing something strange happen, something different. I actually want to look on the hourly. We got BTC, Uni, Pump, ASTER, Link, Virtual, but still BTC's got the biggest flows on the hourly. Let's look at the 4 hour over here. Solana getting quite big flows on the 4 hourly, the 12 hour. Also still Solana and ASTER, 24 hours. Let's have a look at that. Also Solana and ASTER. So we spoke about that yesterday. Chris in Whale Room, one of our coaches over there, also gave an ASTER long trade. We spoke about the rounded bottom. That ASTER position is still moving towards the upside. So getting those flows. Solana bouncing off some key levels. We'll get back to Solana in a moment. Is this going to be sustainable or not? But at the end of the day, we're seeing something interesting, right? Have a look at this. So if you look at the total cryptocurrency market cap, it's very, very fast approaching as well this supporting trend line. So you can see over here, touch point 1, 2, 3, and coming in for the fourth touch over here, while simultaneously coming into that golden pocket. But what's more interesting is this. Total 3 measured against Bitcoin. Have a look at that. This is a notable shift, something that we haven't seen for a very, very, very long period of time, where altcoins are unbelievably outperforming Bitcoin right now as the market sells off. A very, very rare occasion. So what do you make of this? I think you need to be very selective in your choice of coins if you are going to even play that. And I still maintain that the best thing that you can be doing is maintain a concentrated approach, meaning you're holding a very, very small portion of trades or coins that you're actively managing, as opposed to, portfolios. Don't go and buy an altcoin portfolio. You're going to get absolutely rinsed, right? Because the breakdown in Bitcoin dominance, which we also spoke about as potential, if we said yesterday, actually, if this does reject, and even if this does break down all the way here, you're not going to have every altcoin being the beneficiary of that money flowing out of Bitcoin and into those altcoins. You want to be, really, really, really cautious in your selection of coins, right? So we spoke about some of the top picks. ASTER was one of them. We'll look today as well if we can find any new ones. For Bitcoin is coming into the key level. This is your daily fair value gap. You got a lot of volume over here. Remember, we've kept you safe throughout in each of these breaks over here. We said, you must reclaim that level, you must reclaim that level, you must reclaim that level. And now I would say the levels to reclaim is going to be things like the yearly open. You're going to need to see a more sizable bounce. You're going to need to see some high lows form over here, some bullish divergences as well before things will look good. And any pump that occurs, it must be met with a rise in volume, because all of this now is underside resistance. So even if you do rally up over here into 95,300, good chance that's resistance, and you're going to continue to mark down. But nevertheless, we've come now officially back into this area. I price labeled it for you a couple of days ago, saying that, well, we have this over here, which is a daily fair value gap, and I'll highlight it. A daily fair value gap that we've come into, and therefore there will be people in the market who are looking to bid this. But by bid, I mean buy, right? However, you need to look at the lower timeframes and things like the USDT dominance in order to find your trigger plan to get your entry, because it's still dangerous. This is still catching a falling knife. It depends how aggressive or passive you are in terms of your trade and investing approach, right? So this was already dropped as well in Whale Room. I dropped it over here. You can see Sunday, November the 2nd. It was a Sunday update that I did for everyone. The ascending triangle, we spoke about this. 1, 2, 3, 4 touches into an ascending triangle, which is a high probability of breaking out for USDT dominance. And we're looking for that to drop back down towards that 4.9% level, find support, and then rally through to the target level at 5.87. Well, that's where we find ourselves now, right? There it is. Price rallied up, 5.87. We said this will create a lot of carnage, a big, big, big dump over there. So Whale Room members, you were kept safe ahead of time. Remember, guys, for those of you that want to join Whale Room, the link is below. If you go over here, there are only limited spots. Yesterday, you guys took about 30% of all the available spots that we have left. So there's 70% of the places still. Click that link. You're getting a 48, almost half price, 48% discount. You do need to take the promo code, right? So you have to copy this. I'll show you quickly. Copy this. Black Friday, go through to this page over here. Scroll through to the bottom. You can see we have 4.9 stars over there with thousands of different rankings. You can go and read all the testimonials. If you're unsure, go through to the bottom over here, click sign up. And then you have to apply the code, right? You're not going to get the 48% discount unless you put the promo code in here. So you'll see the price will change, right? Black Friday, click apply, and that will issue you your 48% discount over there. So there you go, 48% discount. That's the place to go, right? All right, moving on over here. So USDT dominance is one of the keys, vitally important. This kept us safe throughout this dump. And now we have the opportunity to look at it to decipher when to re-enter, if we even should re-enter. So what is that going to look like? In order for that to take place, we really need to break down the structure. Now, yesterday we spoke about maybe you'll move down here. If you're lucky, that will create an opportunity to exit, but you didn't even get that. It's just been completely brutal. I'm monitoring very simply the trend as well as the key horizontals, which is coming in at the top of that yellow line. That is also the measured move that led to that upside move. So I'll again price label it. At minimum, before getting too excited, I need to see this level taken out. I'm going to delete this so we don't have too many things on the chart. Not that one over there. Let's quickly remove this price label. There we go. So we don't have too much on the chart. I don't want to confuse you over here. But what you need to see is you would need to see USDT dominance begin to break down. You need to see this come down. You would need to see this take out that higher low, probably rally back up into some form of resistance, which we'll call the deviation. That deviation would trigger a short trade, a potential short trade, right? It always comes with a lot of risk. Potential short trade, which would therefore coincide with a potential long trade from this fair value gap, daily fair value gap. Okay, but do not count your chickens before they hatch, because that hasn't happened yet. What's happening right now is the USDT dominance is actually breaking out. And if it holds this as support, this is long continuation. So you long on USDT dominance. As USDT dominance goes up, everything else goes down. Remember that it's money flowing from everything else back into safety, which people view as USDT dominance. Basim, you need to go into Amazon and search for a compass. That is my advice to you. If you are lost, get a compass. If you're still lost, jump into whale room, right? We'll help you out over there. You can ask the team anything if you have any questions. So we're looking at the back test into support. I want to be clear, and I'm going to literally make it absolutely dead simple for all of you. This is theoretically still long on USDT dominance, right? This is still long. This would be your stop loss effectively, and you would be trading this higher to, let's call it some of the other key levels I'll show you on the weekly time frame. The short trade, however, would trigger if you start to break below this. Then you could float your stops, above, and you could short into any sort of a lower high. And then this drop off in USDT dominance would therefore equate to a bit of a bounce in the rest of the market. Okay, so don't lose sight of what this means in relation to the higher time frame USDT dominance chart. I can't emphasize this enough. This is your most important chart in the market. This is the most important thing. It's honestly the most important thing, because USDT dominance breaking above the 6.5, which is why you want to look at this daily chart on the 4-hour chart. If this does this, and it just holds as support and continues to mark up, what do you think this is going to do? I mean, this is just on the high time frame. This breaking above 6.5 is mega wreckage. That means 1, 2, 3. You've already broken the downsloping trend line. 4th time, breakout, big move, right? Big move towards the upside. That will create absolutely massive carnage. So right now, the edge is definitely with the bears. Why? Because they already closed one weekly candle outside. If they close a second weekly candle outside of this downsloping trend line, it just drastically increases the chances that they're going to break this thing out. I think if you're lucky, you'll get a pullback like that, right, into the yellow line, which is your mid-range, and a back test into that support level. So if you're lucky, you see something like that. That is not happening yet. Right now, the bulls in USDT dominance are in control, and the bears in crypto are in control. So yeah, if you want to learn more, guys, remember, take advantage of the Black Friday. I want to mention it one more time. Make sure that you utilize the promo code, which is listed below. 30% of all of the available spots that we have were taken already yesterday and Saturday. So if you want to join, do so as soon as possible, because we're going to lock it down, right? We're locking it down. Once we finish, there's not going to be any new people coming in. You're with us all the way back to, the start of the next cycle. So lining this up, lining all these things up, USDT dominance, you want to see that rejection, you want to see that breakdown. You can line that up with the daily fair value gap on Bitcoin. If you are to get the bounce, well, what are you looking at over here? Well, the one thing is you do have a TD sequential 9 bottom, which is coming into play. That's not today. That would be tomorrow. So maybe a little bit more pain over the course of today. Tomorrow, you're going to get a TD sequential 9 buy on the daily, which has the possibility. It's no guarantee. This is a possibility. You trade down a little bit further tomorrow. Maybe you hit about 85K, I would say. And that will lead to, I want to be clear, and I'm going to write it on the chart so there's no confusion. That will lead to a 1 to a 4 candle correction. This would therefore be a correction within a bearish trend, which i.e. means a bounce. So only 1 to 4 candles, which is probably going to lead into a lower high. Okay. So even if you do get that TD sequential buy, it's a short-term relief bounce. We can reevaluate if something else changes over there, but that's kind of the plan of action, and that's coming off of this daily fair value gap. Now, to actually get this trigger plan in order, you need to use the low time frames, like the very, very low time frames, 5-minute, 15-minute, which we'll get to in a moment. Okay. But also, you have on Thursday your bear moon coming in. You have your death cross. Really, this is the big area that you need to reclaim in order for swing trades, meaning the high time frame, to shift bullish once again. I mean, a lot of structure has been broken, right? Bulls need to do massive things. Like, you need to basically get back all above this. It's going to take a long time, basically only into the end of the year, maybe. Then you print a high low. It's got a lot of work to do, a lot. So if you're a spot trader, your best position is a cash position, unless you're doing short-term trades. Even on spot, you can take advantage of these short-term trades, right? These will elicit some pretty big moves, right? So you get a TD9 buy, and let's say it pumps into underside resistance. You just made 17%, even though it's a lower high and probably going to reject. 17%, decent. Okay, quick question over here. When is the, I assume you mean gravity airdrop? It's meant to be Q1, speculated to be Q1 of next year. All right. Let's move on over here. So we got all of that out the way. We got negative deltas as expected. This tells you on high block capital, the majority of traders are short, except for on ASTER. It's one of the few coins that we long on in 𝗲𝗏𝗪. ASTER putting in positive deltas over there. We have the liquidation levels, which I want to look at multiple different timeframes. The weekly is almost 100 million. Yesterday, I was sitting at about $98,000. You can see these are short traders, which are dropping their stop losses. Their stop losses are now sitting at 96,800. The daily has got quite large liquidation numbers already picking up here. 43 million. Anything above like 20, 25 million is significant. And that comes in at $93,000. So have a look at price. $93,000. Let's just be clear. What would happen if that gets hit? You can see what does that do, right? On the liquidation chart, it looks amazing, right? When you look at this, you're like, oh my word, look at all that liquidity. This thing's gonna absolutely pump. But when you look at that, I mean, this is what it amounts to, right? If you take that out, you're literally just going to move like 4%, and your RSI pivot level is still trending down, right? So you have to get above that yellow line, which hasn't even happened. Okay, so all in all, it's pretty bearish. Let's just be honest. It's still pretty bearish. This is going to be one of the most important signals to watch is 4-hour chart, USDT dominance. What happens over here at 5.8%, and can you take out 5.69% to avoid a bigger breakout over there? Okay, so low time frames, still in a downtrend. Even if you get this little bit of a move, you can only, start to get interested on the earliest time frame by getting above that yearly open. You want to get above the yearly open. This is all going to be underside resistance, right? Yearly open, underside resistance, very likely to reject. So you need to wait for this downtrend to break. You can, of course, use things like trend lines, but according to the trend line, well, you're already breaking that little bit of a trend. But remember, it's more about the overall structure, the lower lows, the lower highs, the big horizontal resistances. I don't really see anything too compelling that I'm willing to jump into over here. Is it possible that this is a major bottom forming? It is possible. It's just how probable is it, right? You in the blue zone over here is effectively your daily fair value gap. I'm just zoomed in a lot on the 15-minute time frame, right? So there's a lot of work to be done. I would definitely just want to start to clear this level over here at the yearly open first, and then you can look to get into any other pullbacks over there. So that's my thought process. Altcoins, we can have a look at those. Where's ETH at? ETH needs to get back above these levels. It has come into a pretty critical zone. First level of interest, low to the major high. Getting above the 50% level at 3,175 will be pretty good, right? That will be good for ETH to at least have a little bit of hopium. So you're looking for that. That's what you want to see for ETH. A little bit of hopium. Buyers come in over here. ETH probably looks like one of the better plays. Why? Well, we already went to this, right? Already looking like a big rejection over here, and this thing could fall through on Bitcoin dominance. You want to stick with the blue chips if the money is going to flow out of Bitcoin into other things. And then we have the ETH BTC chart, which is right at that zone. This is where you'd expect it to reverse. So if there is going to be some excitement in the market, this is what we need. This is exactly what we need. Okay. Cocoa Nuts. Thank you very much. Nailed it again, Carl. Thanks. I do appreciate your support. So that's what we're waiting for. We're trying to be very, very selective in our picks. So in terms of the selection, the coin selection, Ethereum, right? That's one of them. Let's go through a few others. Let's see if there's other selections over here. I still think that, you're not going to see Zcash pump beyond December, in my opinion. We'll see if I'm wrong or right, but I have a little bit of a small bag left over there, very tiny position because I sold most of it on that first peak over here. I sold it on these wick highs over here, still below my sell price, which I took on Gravity. XRP, coming into very, very, very critical support. It could come a little bit lower, about 193, looking for support to be found over there. If that money is going to rotate out of Bitcoin into things like XRP, which is possible because it is one of the blue chips. Let's be honest, it's been around the block. Then, you got to start to break this trend line, reclaim some mid-range levels, which would also break that mid-range, would break that downsloping trend line. That's 255. Okay, Solana, I'm going to go on a little bit of a low time frame. We spoke about the short trade off of this yellow box. I still think this could come a bit deeper to about $100. But could it bounce here first? Absolutely. It could bounce here first. It has been sold off quite hard. I think the bounce would take you to about 150. 150 is going to be your underside resistance. I do believe you'll probably struggle to get through that on the first attempt. So even if you do put in a bit of relief over here, I think that, and then eventually you'll make your way back down to about $100 on Solana. We'll stick with some of the majors today. Okay, Sui, unbelievable. Can you guys believe that? This is why you need to de-risk at times, even if some of the big talking heads of the space, no names mentioned, are very bullish on certain coins like Sui. No guarantee that you're going to get the banana zone. So there's some insight and clues for you guys. But breaking below some key levels, any bounce that comes into $2 now, very likely to be a rejection and probably continuation down. I don't even want to go over downside targets on that. We have Sonic threatening those lows, probably going to break down into price discovery towards the downside again. Okay, so things to be careful of. Say it just sucks. Let's just move on. Cardano, we spoke about this big descending triangle breaking, but this would send it to like -0. But nevertheless, it is breaking it. You broke below the key support. Now you have to look down to 33 cents. So not looking good. We have AVAX below the key support. Very bad. TON, this is what some of these other things are looking like, right? Here's Sui. Sui only just broke below that key support. Let's go back to TON. There's TON. TON lost that key support and it's already leading that move down. This is just to give you an idea of how bad things can get, right? So when you look at things like Say, that's only just losing that. When you look at things like Sui, that's only just losing that. Well, have a look at things like TON to see how bad it could get. That was your key support. And since it lost that, it's gone down already another 40% almost. Casper, pretty brutal. I think it's coming all the way back down to 0.035. I missed this short trade. I can't believe it. But you guys know we had it planned out into this complacency bounce. Hope one of you guys got it. You could hold this for the rest of this year and next year probably. Plasma not looking good. Pump officially lost that key level. Bad, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, grinding into it. 5, breaks through, losing that key support. You got to now look all the way back down to this range. So it's very close to that though. Very, very, very close to that. 20%. ASTER still grinding, still making its way up. It is going to contend with some resistance very, very, very soon, but it has relative strength. If the rest of the market bounces, this thing's going to absolutely cook. Okay, cool. Danny says is going to rally, in your opinion, because it just got listed on DTCC. Let's have a look. I'm not going to, bash your idea just yet. Let's have a look over here on maybe some of the low time frames. I'm very doubtful. I'm not, bashing your ideas over here on things like that, but this is a lot of key levels that are lost. I would say that the first point that I'd get excited is like you have to get above here, about 20 cents. 20 cents. You have to get above 20 cents at least. You can see that is your last lower high. It's just not worth stepping in front of this. This is new swing lows, new yearly lows. Like when last did you close at a candle this low? The last time, okay, it's April 2025 was the last time that you closed that low. So it's not good. Okay, Hype, how's Hype looking? Hype is actually doing okay. It's actually doing okay. What you actually need to consider, guys, in terms of how weak or strong your favorite position is like, for example, if you look at Bitcoin and you click on it, and this has been one of the stronger, but here is your results, 24 hours, 7 days, 14 days, 30, and 1 year. In 1 year, so if you bought Bitcoin 1 year ago, you are down 0.3%. And this morning you're down like, I think 3 or 4%. Okay. But you're holding on to all this risk. Is it worth it? I don't think so. That's why I specifically said for months and months and months now that, this year, I'm not a hodler. This year, I'm purely just taking whatever's the best trade. There is ETH. If you held it 1 year ago, you're down 2.9%. Okay. We can look at a whole bunch of things. What about BNB, which actually did very well? Would you be up on the year? I'm curious. This year up on the year, 45.5%. Let's have a look at some of the other things. Okay. Let's say, okay, what about what about if we, let's go to the next mainstream thing like AVAX. Okay, if you hold AVAX for 1 year, well, you're down 58.9%. So it's been tough out there, right? It's been difficult to select the right thing. What if you held SUI for the whole year? You bought it 1 year ago, you're down 56.5%. Okay, what else? So, it's not like, is a bear market coming for, for a lot of these altcoins, they're already in a bear market, down 61.7%. So a lot of these things topped in November 2024. That was kind of like the more euphoric phase of the market. You may not get the euphoric phase. So I told you I'd give you 3 things that would help you to succeed. Let's get into those 3 things. It's, the first thing I would say is you need to join a like-minded community of people that actively trade and make money for a living in the market. So the first logical place that you can go is, of course, going to be 𝗏𝗏𝗡. You can join, things like free courses, free schools, free communities. Those things are out there. But obviously, I'm biased towards 𝗏𝗏𝗡 because my face is on it. So I have to be. The second thing that I would say that you can do is one of the most simple strategies in the world. And I took the liberty of going and working out how would your positioning be right now, assuming you bought at the worst possible time, right over here, 126K. Okay, this is strategy number 2. What do you do? Strategy number 2. And if you do this strategy, you can also get a full Bitcoin, by the way, today. I'll show you how to do that as well. So 126K, if you bought at the worst time, it's dead easy. Anyone can do it. It just requires discipline. And that strategy is dollar cost averaging. So I took the liberty of marking off, if you bought Bitcoin at the exact top on the 10th of October, 2025, and you just DCA'd $100 per day, what would your equity look like right now? Well, your equity curve was up and it started to round over a little bit. You lost some money, but not nearly as much. Right now, you'd only be down 15%. So you would have allocated $4,000 by dollar cost averaging $100 a day. You would have lost $612, which is 15%. But what would that look like if you bought from exactly at the top? Obviously, if you just lump sum bought into the top over there, well, you would be down 30% almost. So 30% versus, 15%. And I want to be clear, the more you do this, the more smooth out your curve is. I just chose the worst possible time, the absolute worst possible time. You can play around with this, right? If you, let's just say you go back a couple of days before then, you say, well, what if you bought on the 1st of October? How does that change things? Okay, similar. Okay, there's still some volatility over there. So you're down 17%. Let's go back a little bit further. Let's go back to maybe July the 1st. Okay, July the 1st, still down. Wait, this is, okay, Bitcoin, still down 20%. So you got Bitcoin, S&P 500, and gold. And then, of course, if you go back into, last year sometime, choose any date, up 6%. So this will help you to smooth out your curve, right? We are partnered with Easy Bitcoin. Unfortunately, they're only available for the US. But you can dollar cost average anywhere. But if you're in the US, I recommend checking out Easy Bitcoin because you can win a full Bitcoin. So Easy Bitcoin, the link is below. Scan the QR code if you're in the US, or just simply go and check them out. All you have to do is set up either one buy, join their email list, or you can set up a recurring buy and you're eligible to win one full Bitcoin. Don't fade it, right? So those are some of the things you can do. The next thing to do to recover capital is if you do take the active traders approach and you decide that, you want to join us in 𝗏𝗏𝗡 and you want to take these trades with us, where the community are absolutely crushing and we drop active trades all the time over here. You can see their results. Then I think that Bitfunded is a great opportunity as well. 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏's one of our best traders in the group. This guy's posting, this guy's buying like a Lambo a week. It's unreal. And then Waz is one of our coaches over there. So Bitfunded, if you can pass the challenge, if you have less capital and you want to take a Bitfunded challenge, go through with our team over there in 𝗏𝗏𝗡. Try pass the challenge. This is NoForm88 who just passed the 15 and 25K challenge, which means he's now trading with real money. Now, ordinarily, these challenges are going to take at least 10 to 20% of your profits. Okay, so just to be clear, they take 10 to 20% of your profits. But for Black Friday, they're giving you 100% of the profits. And this is the best deal you'll ever see. Buy 3, get 3 of them for free, and you keep 100% of your profits. All the split, there's no split. It's all your money, right? So I think this is one of the best approaches. You don't have to be ready to take the trade today. There's no expiry on the challenges that you buy. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to go and buy about, anywhere between, I think I'm going to go for like 20 to 30 of these challenges, because I buy 30 and I get 30 for free. Then I have 60 challenges. That basically gives you around 1 challenge per week for 52 weeks in the year. So just over 1 challenge per week that you have to play with. And the beauty is, then you're locked in, right? You're locked in where you get 100% of the profit, even if you decide to only take that challenge 50 weeks from now, next year. You want to take the challenge next year, then you can wait for the next Black Friday and just buy all your challenges for the whole year. Anyway, I know that sounds pretty extreme, but I think it's probably the best approach, right? You're not going to get a better deal than that. So those are the 3 ways that I would look to recover it all. Use other people's money, which is in the form of a funding challenge. Dollar cost average to reduce your average entry. Do not underestimate that. But I want to be clear, don't dollar cost average into for example, I always like this one's name, right? Fartcoin. Don't dollar cost average into Fartcoin. It is at range low support, but there's no guarantee, right? There's such a thing called opportunity cost. What we sometimes see is this might do that, and then you might just continue to bleed through. And I want to give you a real life example. This is a story of someone that I know who was very, very, very bullish on a token called, and let's see if we can even find it anymore, Energy Web Token, EWT. Okay, we'll use this one on KuCoin. Energy Web Token it had beautiful promises for the future. And they dollar cost average and kept dollar cost averaging, but the liquidity is so low. And this is what the chart looked like. So at one point in time in October 2023, that looked like the bottom, and it looked like you were deviating, right? It looked like one of these power of 3s where you had this long-term reaccumulation, deviation back into the trading range, and you're going to go for that manipulation up. But what happened? Well, they might have said, look, I got wrecked on this, and I'm just going to keep DCAing. And where's price right now? Can stay there for a very, very, very long period of time, right? And that's the point. So this has remained at those lows for 1,300 days. Okay, 1,300 days. And let's just pretend you got wrecked over here and you were DCAing down. So the coin selection is important, is my point. Things like BTC are going to serve you better if you want to DCA. But let's just say, like, they started DCAing somewhere over here. Price then drew down 93%. 93%. Can you believe that? And that wasn't even from the top. Okay, so that means that probably the average entry after DCAing for a long period of time is maybe like somewhere there, which even when you consider that, and I must check up on them to see if they're still DCAing, but they would still be down 80%. Let's say even if the average entry was at the previous range low, you would still be down 70%. Okay, that requires a lot of work to get back. So don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to DCA into Trump coin. I don't know. I think Trump coin is probably going to play out very similar to this. I don't know if that's a good strategy. And you have to have enough liquidity when there is a pump. Like imagine you buy up, 5 or 10% of the supply. When you get a little bit of a pump, you need to be able to exit that pump. Is there enough liquidity? I don't know. Anyways, guys, there's not that much space left. I'll check up on the team and let you know tomorrow how much is left in terms of the Black Friday percentage. How much can you still get in on? Because we're only selecting a certain number of people, and then we're going to close that off. I'll see you guys all on the next one. Take advantage of all the Black Friday specials, not only with ours, but everywhere in the world. Usually I stock up everything for the whole year. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good day, and cheers for now.